بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Now in last week's lesson we had a look at Tasawwuf and the reality of Tasawwuf, and in particular I mentioned some ahadith and Quranic verses with regards to the importance of purification of the heart, and also regarding the importance of leading a life without having any hatred or malice or any kind of hasad for any Muslim brothers and sisters. And with regards to that, I quoted that very famous hadith of Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas anhu being guaranteed Jannah and paradise. Why? Because he would go to sleep at night without having any hatred or hasad for any of his Muslim brothers or sisters. Now we're just going to continue today in today's lesson with regards to the word tasawwuf and what is tasawwuf and what not is tasawwuf. Now the word tasawwuf comes out from the root word suf, which means wool, and its origin, or the origin of this particular word, comes out from the Arabic word safa. And safa, like we say in Urdu, means safai, from the word safai, which means clean, pak, purification. So what we can derive from here is that this word tasawwuf, i.e. the word tasawwuf itself, literally means purification, literally means cleansing, purifying. It's similar to the Arabic word tayammum, where tayammum literally means to intend. Hence, when somebody does tayammum, the fuqaha, the jurists, say that it is first to make an intention in tayammum. So similarly, this word tasawwuf, it comes from the word safa, which means purification, which means cleanliness. And this is what we do when we do the dhikr, when we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our aim is to clean and purify our hearts. Now, technically speaking, tasawwuf means, or purification, tazkiyah, whatever you want to call it, ihsan, suluk, it means to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, i.e. to purify our souls and then to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is tasawwuf, that is suluk, that is ihsan. Now the key definition which I mentioned here is purifying the soul to gain nearness to Allah. Now you may be thinking that, can't you gain nearness to Allah without purifying your soul? Now the answer is no. The same way namaz is not accepted without purification of your body, without purification of your clothes, without purification of the area where you're praying salah, and other things as well where taharat is necessary. Like for example, if you've had a wet dream, or if there's any najasat on your clothes, you need to clean that before you start your namaz, and so on and so forth. When you've had a wet dream, you need to have a farz ghusl, and then you need to pray your salah. When you are in the state of hadath, you've been to the toilet, you've passed wind, blood has come out of your body, you need to do wudu before you start your namaz. So similarly, for namaz and these kind of things, purification is necessary. When it comes to zakat, that when you give zakat, Allah is not going to accept haram wealth, Allah is going to accept purified wealth, i.e. in terms of halal. Similarly, when it comes to food and eating, Allah is going to accept halal food and not haram food. Similarly, when it comes to roza and fasting, that Allah is going to accept that roza, that fast, which has been performed without any ghiba of anyone, without any slandering, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on. Now the same way with other kind of things, other kind of ibadats like namaz, roza, zakat, hajj, all these kind of things, purification of the clothes is necessary, purification of the intention is necessary. Similarly, when it comes to suluk, gaining nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is based on, or this darul madar is on purification of the soul. That when you purify your soul, when you cleanse your heart, then it's very easy to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is a topic which I mentioned many times before, that if your heart is full of evil, if your heart is full of blackness, yahi, because of the sins and the gunas we're doing, it's very difficult for us to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to clean our heart, we have to polish our heart. And when our heart is clean, when our heart is polished, when our heart has been purified, it's much more easier for us to absorb and listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and listen to his commands. And that's why you'll find that after a person does mujahada, or after a person does something good or pious, it's very easy for him to continue with the good deeds. Now what I mean by that, just say for example, somebody's been for Hajj, and as mentioned in hadith that what's the reward of accepted Hajj is that he returns home as if his mother has given birth to him. So you realize that when somebody comes back from Hajj, at the very beginning, it's very, very easy for him to good deeds. He's there first saf for Fajr, he's waking up for Fajr, all the good deeds, good actions, nawafil, sunnans, you name it, proper pabanani. Obviously then slowly the shaitan comes and then slowly he loses these kind of things. But what I'm trying to say is that when somebody is like purified, like after he goes from Hajj, comes back from Hajj, it's very easy for him to do good deeds and good actions. But on the contrary, if someone is, say for example, doing sins all the time, or his heart is always like in darkness, there's evil in his heart and so on, it's very, very difficult for him to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's mentioned in a hadith that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said that inna min al-hasanati al-hasanatu ba'daha, which means that the reward or the barakah of doing good deeds is that Allah will make you do a good deed afterwards. So when you do a good deed, and it happens when we do a good deed, like even something small, dhikr, namaz and so on, because within the groove, we now find it easy to do a good deed. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes on to say, wa inna mina sayyi'a as-sayyi'atu ba'daha. And when a person does evil or bad, the consequences are that he then does a bad afterwards. That's why it happens like when we say, for example, lie to save ourselves, then to cover up that lie, we then need to make another lie. And then to cover up that lie, we need to then make another lie and so on. So that's what happens, that when somebody does sin, he then has to lie or he has to do something unlawful or haram to kind of keep that sin. So this is what happens when we do bad deeds, that it always kind of multiplies. Hence it makes it difficult for us to do good deeds or gain nearness to Allah. However, when we do good deeds, then obviously it's kind of a groove that we then find it easy to do another good deed and another good deed afterwards. Now he then goes on to say that what is not tasawwuf. So he mentioned that what is tasawwuf, gaining nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, purifying the soul. But what is not tasawwuf? Now, tasawwuf is not having kashf or karamat or ilham. These things are not part of tasawwuf. No, sorry, let me rephrase that. It's not a condition of tasawwuf. Obviously, it's a part in terms of somebody can experience it, but it's not a condition of tasawwuf, or it's not like a sign that you have become a very pious person to have kashf or ilham. What I'm trying to say is that you can be in the path of suluk, you can maintain your dhikr and your remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and so on, but don't come with the idea that, oh, I'm coming to this dhikr or I'm coming to this jamaat so that I can always get kashf and I can always get ilham. That's not the main idea, that's not the main aim. This is where unfortunately sometimes we mix our intention up. Sometimes you speak to some students and you ask them that, why are you learning knowledge for? Why are you learning hadith? Why are you learning tafsir and Quran? So they'll tell you, oh, I want to become a scholar so I could debate with someone. Or I want to become an alim so I could debate with a Salafi around the corner. That's not our intention of becoming an alim or a scholar. That's not our intention of becoming a mufti and so on. So similarly here as well, that we're coming to purify our soul. Obviously if we get it, then fabiha, it's good. But it shouldn't be our main aim that we're going to come here so that we get kashf and ilham. Hence people can say he's a great saint and he's a great Allah wali. That's not our intention here. Now just one point which I just want to mention here about a brother asked this just recently, regarding the difference between the kashf of a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam or Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam and the kashf of a awliyaullah or the kashf of a person. What is the difference between them two? Now the difference between the two is that the kashf of Anbiya alayhi salatu wassalam, they are yaqini, meaning that they are certain. Whereas the kashf of a awliyaullah or a saint of Allah is not 100% certain, but there can be possibility of mistakes. So that is like the main difference between the kashf of a Prophet ﷺ and the kashf of a Ghair Nabi and a awliyaullah. Now let me give you an example of, you may be thinking then if that is, because obviously you may be thinking that if that is the case that awliyaullah's kashf may be slightly wrong, then why do we then read about the kashf of awliyaullah? Why do we sometimes explain the kashf of awliyaullah? Now I'll give you an example to explain what I'm coming from. Just say for example, if somebody was to ask you that, okay, how long will it take to go from here to Central Mosque? Now you probably will say to him, okay, probably take 10 minutes. Now 10 minutes is like a random figure, a nearest figure, sorry. It could be 12 minutes, it could be 15 minutes, it could be actually less than 10 minutes. But it's just kind of a random figure, or a closest figure you given is of 10 minutes. Now when you are now approaching Central Mosque, just say you're around that roundabout near the Joseph Chamberlain School or College. Now if somebody was to ask you, okay, how far are we from Central Mosque? Now you'll say to him 2 minutes. Now if he was to ask you, are you sure it's 2 minutes? He'll say, yeah, definitely 2 minutes, just round the corner and then we'll find Central Mosque there. That is the difference between the kashf of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the kashf of awliyaullah. The kashf of Ab sallallahu alaihi wasallam is like the 2-minute example. Yaqeen ke saath. Like when you're there, near to your destination, Ab sallallahu alaihi wasallam could see the kashf. Whereas the awliyaullah, he's seeing the same kashf, but he's seeing it, you could say, a bit more further back. So that's why they may be, it's like sometimes, if we were to see something running, so you probably think, oh, is he a human being or something like that? So you get a doubt, or is he a rat or something like that? Okay, so you'll get a doubt because we're seeing it from far. But if you're nearby, then we'll think, oh, it's more like a rat, not like a human being or something like that, because rat size is quite big nowadays, isn't it? So what I'm trying to say is that you'll give that kind of, so that's why it is that Nabi, he sees the kashf from right there, whereas the awliyaullah, they see the kashf from behind, but obviously what they see is also the truth as well. But because they're a bit far away, so that's why sometimes there could be possibilities of khata and mistakes in that. And there's many examples of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam seeing kashf and so on. Just a hadith just comes into mind about the Battle of Mu'tah, which happened 1 year before Fateh Makkah, approximately 7th Hijri, around 6th Hijri time, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent firstly Hazrat Ja'far bin Abi Talib radhiyallahu anhu, his cousin brother, as the Amir of the battle. So he sent him, and then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that when he is martyred, then make Abdullah bin Rawaha radhiyallahu anhu the Amir. And then when he is martyred, then Ghalib on top of my head, Usama bin Zayd radhiyallahu anhu, make him the Amir. So what happened was that in that very battle, as Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam predicted, Ja'far bin Abi Talib was martyred. Then Abdullah bin Rawaha, he became the Amir. And then afterwards, when he became martyred, then Usama bin Zayd anhu became the Amir. And he was also martyred as well. Now it's mentioned in the hadith that when everything was happening, because Mu'tah was very, very far away from Medina Munawwara. So what happened was that when the battle was going on, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called all the Sahabas to Masjid Nabawi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and all the Sahabas were sitting. And then the veil, the parda from Medina Munawwara to Mu'tah, which is more near to Syria, it all opened up. So Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam was seeing everything, what was happening in the battlefield. So Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying that, oh, Hazrat Ja'far radhiyallahu anhu just passed away, he's become a shaheed. So the Sahabas were waiting there, they were listening. And then after that, Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, oh, Abdullah bin Rawaha, he's taken the flag of Islam. And then Abdullah bin Rawaha, he's become shaheed. So the Sahabas, they were listening to what was happening, and Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam was seeing everything of the battlefield. So this is an example of Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam's kashf, that right in front of him, Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam was able to see. And obviously the kashf of a Nabi, of Abu sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or any prophet, is free from any khata and mistakes. May Allah give us the tawfiq to act on what's been said.